Hi there, Josh here. Welcome to Frames Per Second. Today we are doing something special. We're shooting with the Hasselblad X Pan, which is a panoramic film camera. It takes photos the length of 2 frames, so it's a widescreen kind of view. And because it is such a cinematic aspect ratio, we're going to be shooting some 250D, which we get done in ECN2 to get full cinema experience. So I want to thank Tim for letting me borrow your camera, and we're just going to have some fun shooting around the city. So it's about to become a golden hour, so let's get out there and shoot some photos. Welcome to X Pan Summer. This summer, or winter in the States, we're going to be looking at the X Pan because I shot a lot of rolls through it when I got to borrow one for a week. And so here we're starting with cinema film, the 250D from Kodak. And yeah, it looks great. I mean, we've already looked at this film before. It's a great film, but it was the obvious choice for using when shooting the X Pan for the first time. And yeah, it was quite a treat getting to play with this X Pan. Like, I will do a proper video just focusing on the camera itself, but I will just kind of give my first thoughts on it, which is that the build is incredible. Just the placement of all the dials and everything. It's made out of titanium and it's fantastic. So now I saw this group of seagulls just kind of chilling on these rails, so I thought I had to get that in the shot. And I also kind of wanted the city in the background, so when using the X Pan I was like, why not? And so then I did decide to try and get in a bit closer, but with this lens, the person I was borrowing it off only had the 45mm, not the 90mm. And one thing I learned very quickly while using this camera was that I wish I had the 90mm, just because you have to get so close to the subjects when using the 45, and that was a real struggle for me when using this camera, especially because of how wide it is already, and the fact that this actually isn't the widest lens you can get for this camera is kind of insane. And I think the 90mm definitely suits my shooting style a lot more. I like to be a little bit less intrusive. I mean, with the 45, it's like I couldn't really get the type of shots I was really wanting to get. So it definitely did help in other circumstances, like when you're in tight spaces, it's helpful for that. But for what I wanted to do, it was just a bit too wide. And I hope next time I get to play with one, I can play with a 90mm. And I think if I did magically have the funds to buy my own, even though they're super expensive now, I would definitely go for the 90mm over the 45. Even though the 45 does have its uses, the 90mm is just more the field view I want, and it kind of helps me not have to be right in someone's face just to get a decent kind of shot with them in it. I really enjoyed it. Like, I come from a filmmaking background, and a lot of my shorts I do shoot 239. So for me, this kind of widescreen frame came easily, even though for this video, just because of the 45mm lens, it was just a bit wider than I would normally use when shooting video. I know a lot of people like to use the X Pan for landscapes, but for me personally, I want to try catch cinematic images, which usually involves people. And I kind of took the wrong spot to kind of take photos with this. Though the next roll I did go into the CBD and got a bit more. This shot in particular, I was just thinking about the color and wanting to see how 250D kind of handled the color and just the dynamic range of this situation with the shadows on the left and the highlights on the right. And so that frame in particular was not me really composing for the widescreen. And these two shots coming up, same thing. These shots were just these people wanting a photo, and so I thought, hey, why not? But yeah, the flare really gets in the way with a lot of these shots. Flares from the sun really got in the way of these shots and other shots on other rolls. And that is one thing you have to take into account when shooting this wide format. Even with the lens put on, it flares quite a bit. And I had a similar problem when using the Nishika. Now, because this was a 45mm, I definitely couldn't get close. And especially because I couldn't go in the water with this camera. So yeah, these shots aren't shots that I'm too happy with, and And the second shot I accidentally underexposed, so it was brought up a bit in the scan, and so there was a slow shutter speed, and it didn't turn out how I wanted, so I did have to kind of brighten it up a little bit post. For the most part, there are quite a lot of frames that I do like. There was just a little bit less happening at this time. I wish I started a little bit earlier in the day, just because I was losing light fast, and it was making it a little bit difficult in some circumstances to get photos that I was kind of hoping to capture. So I did kind of end up taking up random photos. Now this photo I do like, good dynamic range, good colors, and good use of the wide frame. I will say with this camera, I did find myself kind of not having enough headroom, or having too much headroom, or being a bit more to one side, left or right, than I was expecting to when I was composing for it. So I'm not exactly sure how accurate the frame lines are. Now this is the first version of the Hasselblad. There's a second version of it, which is a little bit different. But I will say the rangefinder patch itself was maybe the brightest rangefinder patch I've seen. And I have held a Leica M4 before, and I thought the Hasselblad X Pan had a brighter rangefinder patch, and a better one, at least in my opinion. Though I haven't used any other Leica models, so I can't say anything about the other models, which might be better. But yeah, like I said, I was kind of struggling with the 45mm lens, which is a bit too wide in some circumstances. And with the X Pan being like f4, it did start to get a bit too dark for it. And it kind of sucks that it doesn't have faster lenses, but the field of view is something to behold when you do get the right shot. And I do feel like with this roll in particular, not my favorite roll of what I ended up shooting with the X Pan, so I'm glad I shot a lot more rolls through it. I did wish I went into the CBD rather than South Bank when shooting this, just because there would have been a lot more going on for what I like to shoot. But I did try to find some good widescreen frames where I can, like here. But overall it had really good ergonomics. It feels good in your hands. And the lens is pretty good and sharp. The rangefinder patch for focusing was pretty good, though not every shot was in focus. I will say the times where I was on a lower shutter speed, it did end up getting some motion blur, but that's kind of how it's going to be with every camera. And I do like quite a few of the shots that I go with it. I just struggled with the 45mm, would definitely prefer the 90mm, just to get the kind of shots I like to get. And this was the first roll through it, so it was a lot of figuring out how to best use the lens, and also just the field of view. And I at least with the last shot, I think that might be one of my favorites from the roll, which is coming up. But there's still a bit too much room on the bottom of it that I didn't like as much. But it was a cool moment of these people kind of trying to take a selfie with all themselves here. If anything, I would have liked to have it tilted a bit more up to get more of that cityscape in the background. But I think that was kind of the whole rangefinder patch. Frame lines, I don't know, I felt they were a little bit off from what I thought I was getting. But overall it was a really good experience, and I look forward to hopefully get another chance to use an X Pan in the future.
Hope you liked the episode. Please let me know your thoughts on the film, the images, and the camera in the comments below. Feel free to like, subscribe, turn this post notifications so you know when there's a new episode. Anyway, I'm Josh, it's been FramesPerSecond. It's been fun shooting the X Pan. It's definitely a new experience, and I'm keen to put a few more rolls through it before I have to give it back. So anyway, just get out there, shoot some film.